Dear friends, I will be sharing some of the videos on the topic signals and system. Dear friends, I decided to share some of the topics from signals and system. So I feel that it would be more appropriate if I start with Fourier transform. So let us see why Fourier transform is required. You must have studied continuous time signal, discrete time signal in signals and system. So but when we look at the signal, it becomes difficult to find out what frequencies are present in the signal when signal is in time domain. So to look at the frequency content of the signal, we need to know some tools which are able to extract the frequency content present in the signal. One of such a tool is Fourier transform. The Fourier transform is used to find the frequency content present in the signal. So whenever there is a discrete time signal, we are having discrete time Fourier transform. For continuous time signal, we are having continuous time Fourier transform. Let us define the Fourier transform of discrete time signal. If x of n is a dt signal, then its Fourier transform, I am using ft for Fourier transform, its Fourier transform is defined as x of omega. This is the symbol for defined as x of omega equal to x of n summation x of n e to the power minus j omega n for all n. So this is the definition of Fourier transform. Fourier transform can be obtained from discrete time signal x of n by using this relation. So where all n, it means precisely minus infinity to plus infinity. So this is the symbol for defined as x of omega or x of e to the power j omega is called Fourier transform, or is used for denoting the Fourier transform. In short, it is also written as x of omega. We can also use this notation for denoting the Fourier transform. So many books you will find either this or this notation for denoting the Fourier transform. The Fourier transform, this omega represent frequency in radians. So whenever I am finding Fourier transform, in that case the Fourier transform is obtained with respect to frequency, and in case of time domain signal, the signal is available in the form of with respect to time. Now x of omega is a signal which is function of omega, whereas x of n is a signal which is function of n, which is time domain variable, and this is omega is called frequency domain variable. So as I told you that there are many things which are not visible in time domain, and which we want to extract. So many times we have to go from one domain to another domain. Here we have entered from time domain to frequency domain. So let us study this equation, what this equation is representing, or what this equation is giving in detail we will see. So let us write that equation once again. X e to the power j omega is equal to summation x of n e to the power minus j omega n for all n. Here if you see, this x of n is a dt signal, and this part is called kernel of the transform. This is characterizing the Fourier transform e to the power minus j omega n, which is called kernel of the transform, and which is a function which is characterizing the Fourier transform. So you can write this this e to the power j omega n in another form, phi n omega. If we define e to the power minus j omega n in terms of phi, so it is phi n omega is equal to e to the power minus j omega n. So let us write in terms of phi n omega n, x of n, phi n omega n. Now you look at this equation, you will find that this equation is nothing but linear combination of, let us take from 0, x of 0 phi 0 omega, x of 1 phi 1 of omega, x of 2 phi 2 of omega, and so on. So if you observe this equation, you will find that this is nothing but linear combination of complex exponential function. See, look at this function. This function e to the power minus j omega n, this j is making it complex, e to the power minus j omega n, so it is nothing but complex exponential function. Phi n omega is defined as, if we define phi n omega like this, then x of omega can be written as linear combination of phi n omegas. So number of phi n omegas is decided by how many samples which are non-zero in x of n. Let us say length of the x of n is n, there will be n phi n omegas which will be coming in the linear combinations of the x of omega. So let us again explore this x of omega so as to understand how it is extracting different parameters of the signal x of n. If I put omega equal to 0, if I put omega equal to 0, it gives me x e to the power j0, which is nothing but x of n e to the power minus j omega into 0, which is summation x of n. So x e to the power j omega at omega equal to 0, let us write omega, and omega equal to 0 is becoming summation x of n. So if you look at this, this is the Fourier transform evaluated at frequency omega equal to 0. So Fourier transform of a signal x of n at 0 frequency, which is also called DC part of the signal x of n, can be obtained by using this expression summation x of n, by adding all samples present in the signal. That gives you Fourier transform evaluated at frequency 0. Many times we need to find different frequencies present in the signal. So different frequencies present in the signals can be obtained by plotting the Fourier transform. In general, x of e to the power j omega is a complex quantity. Since it is having x of n, let us say x of n is real and e to the power minus j omega n is a complex quantity. So resultant x of e to the power j omega, definitely it will be a complex quantity. It is a complex quantity at different frequency. It is one complex value. For omega equal to 0, it is one value. Omega equal to pi, it is another value. Omega equal to 2 pi, it is another value. So likewise, x of e to the power j omega is a complex function of frequency omega. So here, when we want to talk about this x of e to the power j omega, since it is a complex quantity, to find out values, different values, or interpret this x of omega, we need to talk about its magnitude and its phase. So magnitude of the Fourier transform and phase of the Fourier transform, these are the two quantities which we have to interpret, or which we have to study, since it is a complex quantity. So let us see how to find magnitude of x of e to the power j omega and phase of x of e to the power j omega. Whenever there is a complex quantity, to study complex quantity there are two ways. One way is find magnitude and phase, and second way is find its real part and imaginary part, and represent take out real part separately and take out imaginary part separately. We can talk about real part and imaginary part, or we can talk about magnitude and phase of the x of e to the power j omega. Let us see how to find magnitude of x of e to the power j omega. So we know that e to the power j theta is nothing but cos theta plus j sin theta. So this can be written as x of n e to the power j theta. It means it is cos of omega n minus j times sine of omega n. So e to the power j theta is written as cos theta plus j sin theta. So when we expand this, or when we write in these two things in terms of summation, two summations, when we write this in terms of two summations, it will be like this: x of n cos omega n and x of n sin omega n over n. This is your x of e to the power j omega. X of e to the power j omega can be written as in two terms, in the form of two terms. The first term, cos, is always real function, where x of n, if you assume it is a real function, so it is a real quantity. And second part, which is multiplied by j, so part which is multiple of j is called a complex or imaginary part, and that imaginary part and real part, these are the two parts of the Fourier transform x of e to the power j omega. We can study in this fashion, or another way of looking at the complex quantity is find its magnitude and find its phase. Let us find the magnitude of the transform. So for finding the magnitude of the Fourier transform, we require xr e to the power j omega and xi e to the power j omega. Real part of the Fourier transform and imaginary part of the Fourier transform. By using this real part and imaginary part, we can find the magnitude. So we know that this is nothing but, real part is nothing but x of n cos omega n, and imaginary part is x of n sin omega n with minus sign. Here we know that magnitude is nothing but x e to the power j omega is equal to square root of xr e to the power j omega whole square plus xi e to the power j omega whole square. This is the way of finding the magnitude if we are having real part and imaginary part. So phase of the Fourier transform can be obtained, can be denoted by phi of omega, and which is also denoted by this way, x of e to the power j omega, which is equal to tan inverse of imaginary part divided by real part, imaginary part of the Fourier transform and real part of the Fourier transform. So after having real part, imaginary part of the Fourier transform, we can find magnitude and we can find phase of the Fourier transform. As I told you that in general, x of omega is a complex function or complex signal, and to talk about this complex quantity, we are having two ways of representing that complex quantity. One is find its real part and imaginary part and plot these parts separately, and another way is find the magnitude by using this real and imaginary part and find phase again by using imaginary and real part. So let us study the different parts of x of omega in detail, that is magnitude part, real part, imaginary part and phase. let us see what properties these parts they are satisfying. Here I am assuming that given signal x of n is a real signal. Let us first see what real part is satisfying. xr e to the power j omega, which we have already obtained, which is summation x of n cos of omega into n. Let us replace omega by minus omega. So xr e to the power minus j omega is equal to summation x of n e to the power summation x of n cos of minus omega n. In real part, what I am doing is I am replacing omega by minus omega. So what is the effect on the corresponding right hand side? So in right hand side it is x of n cos of minus omega n. We know that cos of minus theta is cos theta, so it is cos of omega n, and which is nothing but original xr e to the power j omega. So from this we can conclude that the Fourier transform, real part of the Fourier transform is symmetric. Real part of the Fourier transform is symmetric. Let us see what about imaginary part of the Fourier transform. The imaginary part of the Fourier transform is, we already calculated, which is equal to summation x of n sine of omega n for all n. Here also let us replace omega by minus omega in both the side. By replacing omega by minus omega, we get summation x of n sine of minus omega into n. We know that sine of minus theta is minus sine theta, so it becomes summation x of n sine of omega n. And if you look at this x of e to the power j omega, so you can easily write x of n sine omega n equal to minus xi e to the power minus xi e to the power j omega. So we can say that imaginary part of the Fourier transform is antisymmetric or odd. Antisymmetric. xi is antisymmetric, whereas xr is symmetric. Symmetric is also called as even, antisymmetric is also called as odd. So we have understood that whenever we take Fourier transform of a real signal x of n, in that case imaginary part is antisymmetric and real part of the Fourier transform is always symmetric. So we have seen imaginary and real part of the Fourier transform. Real part is even, whereas imaginary part is odd. Let us look at the phase of the transform. Let us look at the phase of the Fourier transform. Again, I am telling you that the given signal x of n is real. If x of n is complex, all these properties will be different. So let us take the phase of the Fourier transform. We know that phi of omega is tan inverse of xi e to the power j omega divided by xr e to the power plus j omega. So ratio of imaginary part to real part. We know that, again do the same thing, replace omega by minus omega. So phi of minus omega is equal to tan inverse of xi e to the power minus j omega divided by xr e to the power minus j omega. You must have observed that in all these three cases what I have done is I have replaced omega by minus omega in all three equations. And now here, by observing this phi of minus omega, you can write tan inverse of, we know that imaginary part of the Fourier transform is always odd, so it is minus xi e to the power j omega divided by, even part is always symmetric, xr e to the power j omega, so which is written as minus tan inverse of xi e to the power j omega divided by xr e to the power j omega. So we can say that it is equal to phi of minus omega is equal to minus of phi omega. So it means that phase of the Fourier transform is always anti-symmetric. Dear friends, up till now we have derived three things about x of omega. The first thing was real part xr e to the power j omega is equal to xr e to the power minus j omega. So real part of the Fourier transform is always symmetric. Whereas imaginary part of the Fourier transform xi to the power j omega is equal to minus xi e to the power minus j omega, which is antisymmetric. Antisymmetric is also called as odd. So real part of the Fourier transform is always symmetric, imaginary part of the Fourier transform is antisymmetric, and phase of the Fourier transform is again antisymmetric. Now we will talk about the magnitude of the Fourier transform, and after finding the magnitude we will stop this lecture. So let us find the magnitude of the Fourier transform. We know that magnitude is nothing but magnitude is equal to square root of real part square plus imaginary part square. Now let us see what property the magnitude of the Fourier transform is satisfying. So magnitude of the Fourier transform can be obtained by taking square root of real part of the Fourier transform plus imaginary part of the Fourier transform square. The magnitude of the Fourier transform can be obtained by taking the square of real part plus square of imaginary part and square root of that. So let us again replace omega by minus omega in both the side. So by replacing omega by minus omega, here we get x of mod of x of e to the power minus j omega. Here towards right hand side it will be xr e to the power minus j omega plus xi square e to the power minus j omega. Replacing omega by minus omega in both the side we get this. But we know that real part of the Fourier transform is real, so xr e to the power minus j omega is equal to xr e to the power plus j omega. So it is like this. But we know that imaginary part of the Fourier transform is antisymmetric, so which is equal to minus xi e to the power j omega whole square. So after simplification we get xr square plus xi square square root, so which is equal to mod of x of e to the power plus j omega. So here if we observe this, mod of x of e to the power minus j omega is equal to mod of x of e to the power plus j omega. So we can say that the Fourier transform magnitude is always symmetric, or magnitude of the Fourier transform is always symmetric. So let us summarize whatever we have studied in this class. So what we took here is x of n. It was a real signal. That was our assumption. It was a real signal or sequence. So this was our assumption, and by using formula of Fourier transform and by doing certain operations, we came to the following conclusions. Number one, magnitude of Fourier transform is always symmetric. Second, phase of Fourier transform is always antisymmetric. Third, real part of the Fourier transform is symmetric. Fourth, imaginary part of the Fourier transform is antisymmetric. And if you talk about the Fourier transform in total, x of omega x e to the power j omega is conjugate symmetric. Conjugate symmetric. I will explain this in the next class. What is conjugate symmetric? Right? So x of e to the power j omega is conjugate symmetric. So Fourier transform is Fourier transform of real part of, or Fourier transform of x of n is always conjugate symmetric if x of n is real signal. Again, I am reiterating that the given signal in all these equations, given signal x of n was a real signal. Let us stop here.